Have you ever looked at an old PS1 game and thought, why does this actually look good? Because if you really think about it, it shouldn't. Come on, just look at the characters, right? They're made of like, what, 10, 20 polygons? Or maybe less? It should be less, right? So okay, maybe more than 10. But you know what I mean, right? The textures are blurry, the character face barely have any detail. Sometimes their hands look like they are made of Lego. And yet, I actually prefer looking at some of these old games compared to some modern games. And I don't think I'm alone. There's just something about PS1 graphics, man. Something weird, something ugly, but somehow it looks beautiful. And that's what I want to talk about today. Why do PS1 graphics look so good? It obviously not because they are realistic. Come on, man. Let's get this out of the way first. PS1 graphics are not realistic at all. Modern game can give you characters with individual hairs, realistic skin, realistic lighting, reflections, weather, everything. And then you look at the PS1 character, you compare, right? And the guy looks like he was built from leftover cardboard. Come on. But here's the funny thing. I don't think realism is what makes graphics memorable. If you think about it, you can show me a screenshot from a modern game and I might say, wow, that looks amazing. But show me a PS1 game and I can sometimes recognize it immediately. You don't even need the title. You just see those weird polygon textures, the low resolution, the strange lighting, and you just know that's a PS1. It absolutely has a very big identity. Your brain does a lot of the work, right? So I think one of the biggest reasons these games still work is because they don't show you everything. They give you just enough. Take a character face, for example. There's barely any detail there, right? But your brain doesn't look at it and say, well, technically, this isn't a convincing human face. You just accept it. You know that's a person, right? You know it's a character. Your brain fills in the gaps, and I think that's really important. Because when you look at something that extremely detailed, everything is already there. The game is basically saying, here, come on, look at this. This is exactly what it looks like. But PS1 graphics, sometimes it's more like, here's some polygons. You figure out the rest. Use your imagination, man. And somehow, that can be more charming and interesting. The imperfections are part of the charm. And then there's all those weird PS1 graphical problems. Textures move around, polygon shake. Characters sometimes look like they're about to fall apart, right? So objects appear out of nowhere. You walk towards something and suddenly, boom! Suddenly there's a tree. Suddenly there's a building, right? So where did they come from? But today, in modern gaming, right, those things almost feel intentional. Especially in horror games, right? And this is where I think PS1 graphics are actually really clever. Even if they weren't designed to be. Because when you see, for example, games like Resident Evil, right, it scares out of you, right? Because the graphics is already terrifying, and then the ghost, oh, I can't imagine it, man. Because when you're playing a horror game, that room, you're walking down the hallway, it's dark, it's just a blurry, you become very scared, man. You can really tell what at the end of the hallway, right? You see something moving, but you're not sure what it is. Your brain start doing the work. Was that a person? Oh, is it a shadow? Did something just move? And suddenly you scared. Not because the graphics are realistic, because they are not clear enough in your gaming, right? It helps the tone of it. So basically, developers had to work with what they had, right? So I think this is another thing that we forgot. Back then, developers didn't have the choice that we have today. they could just make this character more detailed. The highway will basically say no. So the developer had to make decisions. Where do we spend the polygons? What actually needs detail? What can we hide? And how can we make this environment feel bigger than it really is? How can we recreate atmosphere without all the technology you have today? And sometimes those limitations created really creative solutions. You see a huge world, but technically there might not be that much there. You see a detailed character, but if you stop and look closely, it actually looks incredibly simple, and somehow your brain believe it. But maybe we just nostalgic, maybe, right? Now, I'm not going to pretend nostalgia isn't evolved. Of course it is for a lot of us. PS1 graphics remind us of, I think, maybe being younger. Maybe you remember sitting in front of the TV, right? So maybe you remember playing after school. Maybe you remember borrowing a game from a friend. Maybe you remember watching someone else play, right? Because you could not afford the game yourself at that time. Maybe you remember that little plastic memory card. Those memories. And praying you didn't lose yourself or become corrupt, right? The memory card. So those memories become connected to the graphics. So when we see them again, we don't just see polygons. We see our past, and that's powerful. But here's the interesting part. People who never grew up with the PS1 are also making games that look like PS1 games. So maybe it's not only nostalgia, maybe we genuinely like the aesthetic part of it, the polygon part, right? So when limitations become art, and this is probably my favorite part. So at some point, the limitation become the style, right? Think about what we call it, pixel art. Nobody look at pixel art today and say, wow, they really should have used more pixels. So we understand that the pixels are the art. And I think PS1 graphics are becoming the same thing. Low polygons, low resolution textures. I mean, come on man, weird lighting, G3 animation, texture warping. All of these things used to mean this highway can't do better. Now they can mean we want to try to look like this. In modern gaming, right? You go back to the past because very look nostalgic. I think that's pretty cool because technology usually move forward. Better graphic, better resolution, lighting, detail, realism. And sometimes going backward it creates something pure nostalgic. So maybe perfect isn't always better, and maybe that's the bigger lesson here. We always talk about graphics getting better, and technically they are. There's no argument there. A modern game can look absolutely insane, but better graphics don't automatically mean better memories. You don't remember a game, right, because it had a higher texture resolution. You remember it because of how it made you feel when you play that game. Maybe that's why we can look at a character made from a handful of polygons and still feel something deep in our heart, because we aren't really looking at polygons anymore. We're looking at the character that we spend time with, because when we spend time playing game around 3-4 hours, basically a world that we explore on that game, a game that we play when we were younger. And maybe that's why PS1 graphics still looks good in our memory, not because they were perfect, but they were actually pretty far from perfect, but because they left room for something else in our mind, our imagination. They didn't show us everything, so we imagined the rest of the game. And maybe that's something that we lost a little bit as a game have become more realistic, because when everything is shown to us, there less left for us to imagine. So yeah, maybe PS1 graphics are ugly, no comment there. Maybe that's outdated, right? Come on guys, be realistic. So maybe they look ridiculous compared to what we have today, but I don't think that's the point of this video, because sometimes something doesn't have to look realistic, right, to feel real. And maybe that's why we still love it. That's why we play. Okay guys, I see you on the next video, okay? Don't forget to subscribe, like and share this channel. I see you on next video guys. Bye.